Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk to you today about something that I can almost guarantee you've never heard in your life. This is something that actually can change your life and empower you. I'm going to talk to you about race, racism, and the solution to it. I know that's a huge subject, race, racism, and the solution to it. Now, I've done some previous programs on this. If you've seen them, that's great. I'm glad you're still watching. I've got more to talk to you about today I haven't covered, but I have to do a little bit of a review. So if this is because every week we have new viewers and more people watch. So if this is the first time you've seen this, that's fine. I'm going to catch up real quick and then we're going to go on because I want you to know about the solution to a problem that's been plaguing our society now for almost 200 years, if not more than that. And there is a solution. It's not too late. We can fix this. And the way we fix it is with the truth. Because when you know the truth, it's the truth that makes you free. And I want all of us to be free. Our whole society, our whole country, the whole world, I want us to be free from racism, and we can be free from the lie of racism. Now I'm going to show you about it. Racism. There was a project done. Took them almost 13 years to do the project. It was scientists working on it all over the world. It was called the Human Genome Project. Purpose of the project was to map for the first time the human gene, to get a map of the human gene. Again, it took them 13 years to do the project, but they actually finished it. They did it. They completed it in the year 2003, April. They mapped the human genome for the first time. Now, I want you to think about that. It was completed in April 2003. Think about where we are now in time. And this is what they found out when they mapped the human gene. And they didn't expect this. They were just trying to get the map of our gene of the human gene so they could get medical breakthroughs. And they have had medical breakthroughs. But they found something they didn't know they were going to find. Because they were doing this all over the world. Scientists were working on this. They found out, and they put out a report, that every human on the earth, now please listen to this, every human being on this planet, I don't care where you're from, what country they're from, what tone the skin was, it doesn't matter. Every human in the earth, our genes are 99.9% exactly alike. I'm going to say that one more time. Our genes are 99.9% identical to each other. Identical. So they put out a report and they said, ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop using the word race. Because there are no races. I'm going to say it again. There are no races. There's just one race, the human race. I'm part of that race, you're part of that race, and every other human on this planet is part of the same single race, the human race. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, should have been the biggest story of the 21st century. Have you ever heard it before? There's an incredibly good chance you've never heard that ever in your life. The world of science knows about it. They write papers about it. The National Academy of Science, which is the very prestigious National Academy of Sciences, they had a group of their members come together and say, we need to form a board so we can come up with new words to use when we write our scientific papers in our journals and publish them. We need new words to use instead of the word race. We've got to have another word because there are no races. We found out that there were one race. A single race, the human race. Now that is powerful if you let that just sink inside you. And I'm trying to empower you today. I know that almost sounds like a cliche word, empower, but I mean that. I'm trying to empower you today with truth because it is the truth that really does make us free. I want you to get to a place where it is impossible for you ever to feel like someone has been prejudiced towards you. For any reason, skin tone, weight, whatever. Because Hollywood, if you think about it, the entertainment business puts out these images of what we are supposed to look like. And if you don't match the image, then you feel like you're somehow less. That you haven't met the standard that you should be meeting. That you don't have the value that the people in the pictures that you see have. And you can feel somebody treats you because of the way you look. You can feel that somebody treats you less than they would treat someone that you would think would be more attractive than you. It's amazing, isn't it? But I'm primarily focusing on actual race, skin tone. And there are no races, ladies and gentlemen. We're one race. So the question is then, where did the idea come from that we did have races? That there were all kinds of races around the world, and that not only that, but modern racism, that there was superior and inferior races. Where did that whole idea come from? I'm going to tell you quickly. The idea came from Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution. That's where it came from. Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution. Now, before Darwin, there were scientists who were already racist. They believed that biologically there were reasons why people of different skin tones had different abilities, etc. But it wasn't a settled argument. In fact, there were scientists arguing absolutely the opposite way that was totally untrue, that made no difference. So there was a big battle going on until Darwin came along, 1859, and put out his book on the origin of the species. And the first big thing that he put out was, there is no God. No God. Now, theology had always been known as the queen of the sciences. So theology always trumped every other science. So if some science or some scientist came up with an idea and it went against what the Bible said, what theology said, then theology trumped it. It overruled it, and people believed theology. It was the queen of the sciences. So what happened was, when Darwin came along and he said, there is no God. No God. That was the primary reason that the scientific world jumped on his theory. It wasn't because of the theory itself, because the theory is packed full of holes, gigantic holes. One of the biggest holes being, how in the world did we go from no life to life without anybody directing it? Because in the theory, and you know the theory of evolution, you probably remember it from school if you haven't heard in a while. There was the earth, water, some graphene, graphite, molecules, no life, no director, no creator, no beings of any kind, not an ounce of life. No one was making anything happen. There was no one that had an idea that was trying to cause the idea to come to pass on the earth. It was just the earth here. By the way, Darwin had no explanation of how the earth got here or the universe or the stars. That didn't matter. The science didn't care. And in his theory, just random chance, by pure random accident, nothing making it happen, it just randomly, a single cell of life just formed, just happened. I said in a previous show, there isn't a scientist on this planet, ladies and gentlemen, that can explain how that took place. There isn't a scientist in the world that can explain how we went from no life to life. But it didn't matter because the world of science wanted to believe this, because they finally said, look, this is it. We've got the theory. Now we can go to those theologians and the people who had the queen of the sciences, we can say, we don't need you guys. You guys go jump in the lake. We're the guys with all the wisdom. We're the guys you need to follow. See, we've got this theory. We can explain how biological life came to be on the earth without God. And the scientific world just bought it. And this is not, I'm talking about Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, all the major universities bought into this theory. Darwin had a cousin. I've talked about it. I'm going to do it really quick. His name was Sir Francis Galton. He invented the word eugenics. You may have heard of that word. Eugenics. And Charles Darwin and his cousin together, that theory they took, and eugenics is just superior races and inferior races, because the theory, of course, was that we all evolved from that little single cell. Over millions and millions and millions of years, species evolved, more evolved, more evolved, more evolving, until over millions, multiple millions of years, we finally got to primates, and from primates came humans, and we're all just animals. We all just evolved, and according to Darwin and his cousin, there were some humans that had evolved more than other humans that evolved. Superior humans and inferior humans. And of course, Darwin being light-skinned and his cousin being light-skinned, guess who the superior humans were? Of course, it was the light-skinned folks. And according to the theory, the darker your skin was, the less evolved as an animal you were, because we're all just animals. Now, from that theory, I've talked about it on the previous programs. In fact, I wish you would watch them. You can see them on my website, michaeldalton.com. They're on there. You can watch them 24 hours a day. They're there to watch over and over, so you can get this. You know what happened from the racism that came out of evolution, out of eugenics. People were enslaved. It was like science went over and put their gigantic stamp on slavery and said, it's fine to have slaves. No problem. They're inferior. They're not quite fully human. So you're actually being merciful to them. You're giving them a job. You're giving them something to do. You're watching over them. You're feeding them. What a nice person you are. You're being merciful to the lesser species. That theory went on from the universities, went on into the schools, started being taught in high schools, grade schools, went across our country and around all through the Western world, really around the whole world, but especially in the Western world. Terrible things came from it, ladies and gentlemen. You know all the stuff that's happened because of racism in our country. That's all we hear about all the time in the news is the battle between the races, the problems between the races. It's got to stop. It needs to stop because it is a lie. Darwin knew nothing about genes. He knew nothing about the human genome. His whole thing was a theory. That's why it's called the theory of evolution. That's why scientists call it the theory of evolution, because it's a theory. It's not hard science. But in the Human Genome Project, they worked 13 years, not as a theory, but as hard science, and proved at the end of the project that we are a single race, one race, 99.9% exactly alike, ladies and gentlemen. One race. There are no races on this earth but one. Interestingly, that's what the Bible said. In fact, the Bible had said it 3,000 years, more than 3,000 years, before they completed the Human Genome Project. That God created man, humankind. And when God created us, He created us in His image and His likeness. In fact, the book of Genesis says it this way. Genesis says, in Genesis chapter 1, it says this. God made the animals. He made all the creatures that were on the earth. And then He paused. And then God said this, let us conceive. Listen to this. He said, let us conceive a new creation. Something that had never existed before, a new creation, humanity. And let us make them in our image and after our likeness. Let us give them dominion over the earth, the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and every creeping thing on the earth. And so God did just that. He made humanity in His image and His likeness. He made them male and female. And then God blessed them. And He said unto them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, govern the earth, have dominion over all the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and all the living things that creep on the earth. That's Genesis chapter 1, written by Moses 3,500 years ago. Also in the report from the Human Genome Project, they not only said our genes are 99.9% alike, but they also said we are all cousins, literally related to one another. You're my cousin, I'm your cousin. Every one of us are cousins. Of course we're cousins because we all came from the same original two people. You can trace your ancestors all the way back to Adam and Eve, and I can trace my ancestors all the way back to Adam and Eve, and every other person on this planet can too. That's why we're all related. We all came from the same two people, the same two humans. Now that blew a gigantic hole in the theory of evolution. You were not created, ladies and gentlemen, from some evolutionary mistake. You were created from the most powerful being in all the universe. His name's God, and He made you in His own image, in His own likeness. That's who you are, and that's who I am. Created in the image of God. Do you know Martin Luther King? People call him Dr. Martin Luther King. That's wonderful. But he had a much higher title than that. It was Pastor Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. You know what one of his most favorite verses was in the Bible? He quoted this everywhere, not only when he was in church, he quoted it when he would preach at the big conventions that they had him come and speak at, all these big gatherings would come, he would quote this verse. It's from the book of Acts in the New Testament, and the verse says this, from one blood, God has made all humanity to dwell upon the face of the earth. From one blood. Why do you think Martin Luther King Jr., Pastor Martin Luther King Jr. quoted that? Because he knew before the Human Genome Project was completed what the Bible said was true. That we all had come from the original man and the original woman, and we are one race, ladies and gentlemen, one race. One people created in God's image. Now, I want you to get this. What I'm talking to you about now I know, of course, we're on television and we're reaching a large audience, but there's 300 million people in this country. Very few of them know what we and I are discussing right now and talking about. So because you know that we're one race, and because you know that, you're going to run into all kinds of people every day who do not know, have never heard it before. They don't know they were created in God's image. They don't know that they're created to be just like Him. Not only that, God said we are priceless. He made us priceless. How do you say, how did He make us priceless? You know that God sent His Son Jesus. You've heard the teaching of what we call of Christianity. You probably believe it. You may be a Christian. God sent His Son. Why did He send His Son? Because the whole human race, the original man, the original woman fell. They messed up. Because there was an enemy, the same enemy who put the lie. That's why I can't hate Darwin. He's just a person who believed a lie. And the enemy is the one that put the lie in his brain. He puts the lies in our brain, tries to get us to believe things. And then what he tries to get us all to believe is that we are less than we are. That we're not who God said we are. That we're lower. That we have no value. God sent His Son Jesus because the original man and the original woman, they fell. The enemy came to them and he tempted them. He told them, he said, look, there was one thing they weren't supposed to do. Just one thing God told them not to do. And the enemy came and said, look, if you do this thing, you'll be like God. They already were like God. They were created in His image. But they believed His lie and they acted on it. And when they did, they fell. And there was a barrier between them and God. And ladies and gentlemen, every one of us has had that same barrier. But God fixed the barrier. He loved us so much, He didn't want us to have to pay for what we had all done wrong, because we've all screwed up. We've all messed up, of course. We've all did wrong. We did wrong and we knew we were wrong while we did it, but we did it anyway. Oh, we all did. And that put a barrier between us and God. But God didn't want us to have to pay for it. He didn't want us to have to pay for what we did wrong, because He values us so much. We are so priceless that He said, this is what I'm going to do. Instead of you paying for what you did wrong, I'm going to pay for what you did wrong, and for what I've done wrong, and for what every human did on this planet, what we've all done wrong. And so He sent His Son Jesus, and Jesus came and He went to a cross, and on that cross, Jesus' blood was poured out. And ladies and gentlemen, that blood that Jesus poured out was priceless blood. You can't put a value on it. It is priceless. If you want to know the value of something, there's a simple principle to know the value of anything. And this is the principle. To establish the value of something, somebody's got to have the price to pay for that thing, whatever it is. Doesn't matter if it's a house, a corporation, a camera, a light. To establish the value, somebody's got to have the price to pay for the thing. They're willing to pay for it, and they actually pay. I'm going to say it again. Someone must have the price to pay for the thing. They're willing to actually pay for the thing, and they pay for it. That's who establishes the value of whatever it is they're buying. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen to this. If you didn't hear a thing I said this whole program, focus now and get this. The greatest price ever paid in all the universe to purchase anything was paid to buy you and to buy me. The greatest price. God paid the blood, the priceless blood of His Son, to buy us back from the slavery that we'd gotten ourselves into, because we'd all messed up, and that got us all, the whole human race, into bondage and slavery. God sent His Son, and when He paid that priceless blood, He bought us back from that slavery. He bought us out of the jam we'd got ourselves into. And the price was he had to pay to do that. It's so high you can't even put a number on it. It is priceless. So you know what you're worth? You're priceless, because that's what was paid to buy you. And that's what was paid to buy me. We are priceless. Priceless. You are priceless. Created in the image of God and priceless. Created in the image of God. Made in His image and His likeness. From the same race that we're all from. And God bought us, all of us, and we are priceless. Every single day, every single person you run into, they're priceless. They're just like you, created in His image, and they are your cousin. Now, if you get that in your heart, if you get that in your brain and your heart, it will take any kind of racist thoughts, any kind of prejudice you've had, any kind of prejudice you have felt by others, it will take that and it'll get it out of you, because when you see people, you won't see them the way you used to. And you won't see yourself, more importantly, the way you used to. You'll see it. You'll see yourself the way you actually are. Created in God's image, priceless. And every person you see is the same. And then if somebody acts funny towards you and you think, oh, look, they're looking down on me, you can just stop and go, wait a second. They can't change my value. They can't change who I am. I'm priceless. God bought me. In fact, I feel sorry for them. They just don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. They don't know who they are. They don't know they're priceless. They don't know we're one race, but we are. Ladies and gentlemen, get this in your heart. I want you to go out. Take this message. Take what you're hearing from me. Not only what you're hearing from me, listen to the previous messages. Get it in your heart and please go tell other people. Say, hey, did you know there was a human genome project? They found out we're all one race, and just start a conversation. You say, well, I'm not the kind of person that could do that. Well, then just tell them there's a guy named Michael Dalton. You can go to his website, michaeldalton.com, and watch his videos, and you'll learn it there. I'm out of time, ladies and gentlemen, but I could have to do this quickly because this is so important. Everything God did for us, He bought us, He paid for us, He created us, He made us priceless, and now He's made an offer to every human on this planet. He says, I want to have an eternal, loving relationship with you for all eternity, but I made you just like me. I gave you free will. I only want people to love me because they want to. I'm offering to have an eternal relationship with you. I want to make you my child. I want you to be a member of my family, but you have to say yes. I won't make you do it. I'm offering it to you. It's the greatest offer anybody will ever offer you. To become a member of the family of God, God's own child. You just simply have to say, yes, I take that offer. I want to be in your family. You may have believed in God all your life, but you never actually told Him, yeah, I want to be in your family. Take me in. Make me your child. I want you to pray with me right now and say yes. Say yes. Ask Him into your heart. Just pray right now with me. Ask Him into your life. Follow it. Just say these words. Say, Jesus Christ, come into my heart. I accept your offer. God, I accept your offer. Yes, I say yes to you. I want to be a member of your family. Take me into your family. Make me your child. Thank you for making me priceless. Thank you for making me in your image. Come into my heart, Jesus. Thank you for washing me with your priceless blood. I make you my Lord forever. If you prayed that prayer, you just became a member of the family of God. For all eternity, you're His. I'm out of time. Please watch us next week. I've got more to talk to you about. Remember who you are. Remember, everybody doesn't know, but you know. Walk in it. Spread the message. Be who you are. See you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to hear from you. You can send me a text or an email to michael@michaeldalton.com. Or you can call the 800 number that you see on the screen. You can also just go on our website, click on the Contact Us page, and from right there you can send us a message. You can also write to us at the address that's on the screen. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching.